Welcome to What? Series 8 and number 3. This one is a great story. Back a couple of millenniums ago, which is just another way of saying the traditional opening to a story of long, long ago, people who lived in Israel had stuffed up everything pretty severely, and God had to take some drastic action to get them to take notice of him again. So what he did was he let a neighbouring country beat them at war, which was kind of like the sport of the day, and they lost, so the other side made them slaves. Well, nobody likes being told what to do, particularly by a fat king. Well, the Bible actually says, and I quote, he was very fat. The Bible is often prone for understatement. For instance, God is seeing that the earth was good when he made it. He says it's good. I think it's all very amazing. We make a TV and we say it's fantastic, and he makes an elephant and he says it's good. We make a car and say it's incredible, and he makes an eagle and says it's good. You see what I mean? Slight underestimation. And so this king dude was obese, large, oversized, had love handles, and the Bible said he was greedy, which is probably how he got fat. He made all of the nations that he ruled pay taxes. And not like what we do today, but taxes that really couldn't be afforded by the people. Or maybe it is like today. Anyway, but as well as taxing the people heavily, he didn't send tax collectors, but he got people to bring him the money, and if he didn't like them, he cut their heads off. Initially, all the towns sent the important people to pay the tax, but when they didn't come back, well, people stopped volunteering, you could say, and they chose someone who was just, let's say, expendable. That's where this guy, Ehud, comes in. Well, he was, definitely on the expendable side. He was the youngest in his family, not particularly good at anything, and in fact, he was left-handed. What's wrong with that? In those days, they thought you're a bit strange if you were left-handed. In fact, they thought there was something wrong with you. So Ehud was chosen as a tax taker. Anyway, Ehud wasn't thrilled at this. After all, he'd heard that the tax takers tended to lose their head regularly, and he was fairly attached to his head. He was sick of being downtrodden, spat on, treated poorly, so he decided to take action. He went to Dad's sword cupboard, which is kind of like the forerunner of a modern-day gun cupboard, and unfortunately locks hadn't been invented, so juveniles could have access to swords, daggers, and stay-sharp kitchen knives. Anyway, he went to the sword cupboard and grabbed a sword, but it was far too heavy and it still had blood and stuff on it. Must have been Dad's. He grabbed the next sword and it felt all wussy and it was shiny and clean, so that was definitely Mum's. Then he grabbed a third sword and it felt just right. Oh, somehow I feel I'm getting the stories confused here. And the Bible says the sword was a short, double-edged sword, which the Bible also says that he strapped to his right inner thigh very carefully. Right, he says, I'm ready. And he gets the taxes, which were gold, and a packed lunch from Mum, and he walks off to pay the taxes. Well, hang on. Gold is heavy, and he had a sword strapped to the inner thigh. He basically limps off carefully to pay the taxes. Of course, the palace was a different distance away, kind of like walking to Queensland or some other foreign place. When he gets there, he looks for the doorbell and realises they haven't been invented yet, so he knocks. And the doorman comes to the door and goes, yes? Ehud says, I've come to pay the taxes. And the doorman says, walk this way. Right. Ehud's dragging the gold and limping along due to the chafing caused by a very rough hilt of the sword on his inner thigh. And he's taken to the throne room. The door swings open and Ehud has his first view of his mountainous the king. Eglon is his name. My goodness, he was huge. His throne was a park bench and he was eating a lot and eating loudly. How are you, boy? Says the king. And what do you want? Ehud says, I'm Ehud, your fatness, and I've come to pay the taxes. Oh, good. Put them down here and have that guard over there cut your head off. Oh, this is not going well. Ehud says, king-type person, I'd like to keep my head, and I've got a secret message from God for you. Oh. Eglon goes, okay, tell me what it is. His Hugeness King Eglon says, it wouldn't be a secret if I told you in front of everybody, your fatness. Ehud stammered. Obviously the king missed the slight indiscretion or was too busy eating. The king thinks about this briefly and says, okay, everybody out. I've heard of this God person, and maybe I can get him to pay taxes as well. The last line is not actually found in the Bible, but it seemed appropriate at the time of writing. Okay, what's the message? Ehud takes a deep breath and says, you've been greedy and you deserve to die. At this particular statement, Ehud extracts the double-edged short sword, very carefully mind you, so as not to do any damage to his inner thigh, and he takes a firm grip and stabs the king in the general area of the belly button. Now, to be accurate, the Bible says, and again I quote here, that the fat encompassed the sword even over the hilt. Wow, this was one fat dude. The Bible goes on to say, and the entrails oozed out. Oh, wow, King Eglon at this point realises that he has a tummy pain that is not just indigestion, and he goes, ouch, rolls over and dies. Now, the Bible doesn't say how long it took him to roll over. Ehud is pretty pleased with himself and realises he just didn't kill the king. I've just killed the king, yay. He says, oh, this may not be a good thing, and he looks for a way up. And he goes out the back window, down the down pipe, and off to tell his mates, thinking, I've just killed the king. But I'm actually thinking he probably didn't climb down the drain pipe because they hadn't been invented, so he probably just jumped out the window and went splat. Then ran off to tell his mates, I've just killed I've just killed the king. Off he goes. Here's the good bit. Meanwhile, back at the palace, I love that line. And meanwhile, back at the palace, the guards are thinking, this is a very long secret message. And after a couple of hours of thinking, they thought the king had gone to the toilet. And that is actually what the Bible infers. So they decide to check on the king, and they open the door and they find him dead. They run around the palace yelling, the king is dead, the king is dead. At which point Ehud returns with his mates, who also want to have a lot of fun killing the people around. And what they do is, the Bible says, they rout the army of Eglon. In other words, they kick bottom. And that was how Ehud became the ruler of the Israelites. He turned the Israelites back to God, and they respected God until they forgot again, and next time God had to do it all over again with a different situation. I want you to go to the book of Judges, find that story, and have another read. It's a ripper, isn't it? Bless you.